Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin Fisher. I'm an intern counselor here at the Asbury University Center for Wholeness and Wellness. And I'm going to be talking today on our National Day of Unplugging a little bit about loneliness. So just to kind of put that into some context for us, why are we talking about loneliness? Well, experts say right now that we are actually in a loneliness epidemic. In 2019, 61% of Americans reported feeling lonely, and that has been steadily increasing since a survey in 2018 had just under half of the population. And also significant to note is that younger generations are feeling lonelier than older generations. So take a look at those numbers there. Boomers are at about 50% report feeling lonely, millennials at 71%, and Gen Zers at 79% feeling lonely. So we see that that's a problem. We see that in the numbers, but what does that mean for us? How does loneliness actually impact our own well-being? Well, there's a lot of ways that actually impacts our well-being, and we'll start with some mental health concerns. A lot of times loneliness is correlated with things like anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. We also see physical health concerns like cardiovascular problems and even premature death. A lot of times as well, loneliness is associated with lower quality sleep, reductions in reasoning capacity and creativity, and also associated with decreased productivity. And then as well, people who report feeling lonely are more likely to struggle with poor coping mechanisms like compulsive technology use, which is a lot of what we'll be talking about today, smoking and self-harm. So you can see there's a lot of ways that loneliness negatively impacts us. So this is an important topic to talk about. So we're talking about loneliness and technology. So there's got to be some reason why in-person interaction is important, right? We know that we can interact online, but what are the benefits of in-person interaction? And we're just going to kind of like fly by overview some of the basic benefits of in-person interaction. So first of all, according to a 2018 survey, those who have at least one meaningful in-person interaction a day report being significantly less lonely. And so that does specify both meaningful and in-person. So clearly people are reporting feeling less lonely when they're having meaningful in-person interactions. And then secondly, neuroscience shows that our brains are just significantly impacted by the interactions that we have with one another. One neuroscientist puts it this way: your brain as an individual is really determined by the brains that you're connected to. And so that powerful in-person interaction shapes us. And we know that from the time that we're born, as babies, we're shaped by our attachments to our primary caregivers. So we just know that being in person, being social in person is really significant to our health, our mental health, and our development, as well as just our happiness. So here we are talking about technology. What does loneliness have to do with our use of technology? Well, why are we talking about that today? And so basically, as you kind of like back up and look at the research, you probably expect me to say that technology is bad, makes us lonely. But what we know is that there's good and bad, right? There's pros and cons to this. And so research shows that sometimes research shows that people are more lonely the more they use their devices, and sometimes it shows that it can actually ameliorate loneliness. So what does that mean for us? What is the bad news? We're going to start with the bad news and kind of get that out of the way. The bad news about screens and loneliness. So these are just kind of some big categories that you can think about how screens contribute to loneliness. First of all, distraction. We're just constantly available, right? You can be in a group of people, you can be distracted by getting texts or looking at your phone to show somebody a post or something like that. It can kind of take us away from our immediate social interactions. Social comparison. This is obviously a big issue with social media. We just have so much access to people, and we can shape who we are online. And so the fact that we are comparing ourselves to this endless pool of people who may or may not even be showing their true selves online can really decrease our self-esteem and make us feel isolated. Lower self-esteem, a lot of times we isolate. Overconnection. Now that sounds a little bit strange because, well, are we talking about connection here? What do you mean overconnection? Again, with technology, we have endless information, endless possible connections to people. And so sometimes that can actually lead to emotional or relational burnout because we just feel so connected to people, so connected to the problems of the world that we don't even have the energy that we need for people, for the people who are in our immediate presence with us. And then false community. What am I talking about with that? Well, sometimes that can be as simple as I feel connected to the people on this TV show, but also recognizing that that's not a real thing, right? You're not actually a part of that. And if you think, oh no, I don't really think that, like, that's my community. How many of us have experienced watching a TV show recently and going, oh my gosh, they're not wearing masks, or oh my gosh, they're hugging each other, they shouldn't be doing that. There is a sense of feeling like we're a part of that we're in that reality. And so just recognizing that sometimes there's that false community. And then also sometimes we are actually connected with people online, but it's not as good as a community. You can't really call those people up when you need some immediate help. And also just the fact that so many people have the opportunity to comment on your posts or on your life. You have these people that like maybe you don't have as meaningful relationships with, who are kind of weighing in on what you're doing with your life or what you're posting on social media. And so that just kind of expands our community to maybe beyond what it really needs to be, or beyond like what is healthy for us. So that's the bad news. Let's talk about the good news, okay? As we know, of course, because with this pandemic, technology has been a lifesaver for us. It's allowed us to keep working. It's allowed us to stay connected to one another when we have health concerns. So we know that there's good news. What are just some of the kind of broad categories of that good news? Access, right? We have so much access to information, to other people, access so that we can work on snow days, yay, right? We have increased access, so that's great. Social opportunity. So what I'm kind of talking about here is for those people who maybe have some social anxiety or aren't quite sure how to like interact in person, or haven't been like socialized really well, there's actually a screen can kind of serve as a buffer to kind of get you connected with people in a way that maybe is more comfortable for you. But also just this idea of connection that maybe you are just like a candle lover. You just think candles are the coolest thing ever. And nobody in your community understands that. Nobody gets that. And you found a group online that like also loves candles as much as you do. That's awesome. You can be connected to people from all over the place. And so there's this opportunity for connection that's really cool. And then also just convenience, right? It's just convenient to be able to socialize with people. It's easier to stay up with people when we have technology. So there's lots of good news with technology as well. And so just like a brief case study in this particular presentation, right? What's the good news? We'll start with the good news of this presentation. This is accessible, right? I'm doing this from wherever I want to, whenever I want to. You're watching it from wherever you want to, whenever you want to. There's increased access. This can go beyond the Asbury community, which maybe normally we wouldn't be able to. So those are some of the great things. What about the bad news? What is the downside of this presentation being online? Well, you don't get to come up to me afterwards and talk to me. We don't get to make that connection. You don't get to ask me questions. I don't get to hear about how this presentation impacted you. Also, maybe if this presentation were in person, you would be coming with a group of friends and you'd be talking to them about it afterwards. And so it would have more of an impact. So as you're seeing, we're constantly weighing the pros and cons, and you guys are doing this in your day-to-day lives anyways, weighing the pros and cons of our technology use. And just recognizing how it's how it allows us to connect to others more, but also how it might isolate us and contribute to loneliness. And so this is something that, I don't know, is this good news or bad news? A new study of dysfunctional use of smart technology finds that the most addictive smartphone functions all share a common theme. They tap into the human desire to connect with other people. Okay, cool. Like, that's good news because, well, I mean, obviously we want to connect with people. So like, we're not, we're not so far down the road that like we all want to be hermits. But also the fact that that technology, people are creating this technology, it's becoming addictive, and recognizing that we can't really be, we're going to be lonely if we're addicted to our smartphones, even if they're the things that connect us to other people, right? So that's just something to be aware of. What are we drawn to on our phones? Well, we're still drawn to being with one another. But how can we do that in a healthy way? How do we find the balance? So we're just going to talk real briefly about some practical implications. What are some things that you can do to help you find the balance? So first of all, kind of one of the first big things you do is reducing the quantity. Research shows that just reducing the amount of time that we spend on our screens is something that's going to help ameliorate that loneliness. So first of all, less total time. Just spending less time on your screen is something that's going to help, but then also just less frequent use. So here are some things that you can do to spend less total time on your phone. First of all, you can set screen time and app limits on your phone. I know that's pretty simple to do with iPhones. You can, and it'll kind of pop up and tell you that your screen time is up. You can also just set your own personal parameters around things like social media, YouTube, games, or streaming. So you can say like maybe after 10 o'clock at night, I'm not going to use those things. And of course, that's going to be different for every person. Maybe you don't really struggle with YouTube, but like social media is a problem for you. And then also you can actually just take a Sabbath from them. Maybe that's a half day, maybe that's a whole day. It's like, okay, on Sundays, I'm just not going to get on YouTube. So just kind of setting some parameters around your use. Third, an idea is reward yourself for reducing your weekly screen time. Again, with iPhone, we know that you get those screen time reports. And so if you want to say like, I want to reduce my screen time by 20% this week, and if I do, I'll fill in the blank with something that's rewarding to you. And then fourth is just kind of increasing your own awareness, recognizing when and where you spend the most time on your screens. This goes back to, like I said, maybe YouTube is a big problem for you, but social media is not, or you play so many games on your phone when you're sitting with your friends. And so you just need to kind of become aware of like, what's compulsive for me? When do I just like pick up my phone all the time? And when do I spend the most time on my phone? And kind of, create your goals around that. Less frequent use. Some things you can do, turn off push notifications, right? Just do it. You don't need to know every single time somebody posts something on something. You're like, the world is not going to end if you miss that, right? So turn off push notifications because we're just constantly feeling the buzz on our phones. Keep it just on the things that are important. Make your phone less enticing by changing your color settings to grayscale. If your phone looks less like candy, you're going to treat it less like candy. And that's proven in the research that it's just less enticing. We pick it up. These phones are designed to constantly draw our attention. And so they have settings where you can change it to grayscale. You can also reorganize your apps so that maybe you're putting the ones that are more for productivity or mental health, that sort of thing, at the front, the other ones at the back, putting them in folders so that they're a little harder to get to, that sort of thing. Thirdly, challenge yourself to not look at your phone while waiting in line, eating lunch, being in class. When are those times that you're just constantly pulling out your phone? And choose when you get in the line and you immediately feel like I want to pull out my phone. It's like, I'm just going to stand in line right now. I'm going to see what that experience is like. Just challenge yourself to do that. And then another just kind of specific idea is even when you're with a group of friends out to eat or something like that, throw all your phones in the middle of the table. The first one to grab theirs buys everyone fries. And so that's just a way as a group, you can kind of help each other to stay connected and to kind of stay off your screens. So secondly, you can increase the quality. So we want to reduce the quantity of how often we're looking at our screens, but then also we know that screens can be beneficial. And so we're going to increase the quality of the time we spend there. So kind of two broad categories here: more socializing, less junk. So what does that look like? For more socializing, make a rule for yourself. Every time you get on social media, you have to interact with someone. It's social media, right? A lot of us just spend time scrolling and looking, but comment on something, send something to someone, make a rule for yourself, because that'll also make you pause before you pick up your phone to get on social media. Another idea is to watch shows with friends only, right? We binge watch things, but how much more fun is it to watch something with other people? So if there's a show that you really love and someone else loves it too, you can kind of limit your use of that and also make it more social by watching it with other people. Less junk. First of all, unfollow accounts that make you feel like garbage. It's simple as that, right? Maybe there's an Instagram model that, yeah, she has cool product ideas, but also like looking at her makes you feel really terrible about the way that you look. You don't need to follow her. Unfollow her. Makes you feel like garbage. Or maybe there's somebody on TikTok who does practical jokes, takes it too far, and makes you feel gross. Just don't unfollow it. You don't need to follow that. So that when you do get on social media, it's things that are giving you life, making you laugh, showing you beauty, or it's your friends, it's people that you already love. And then secondly, limit screen use that causes you to isolate. So, I mean, if that's like binge watching YouTube or games, that sort of thing, recognize, when am I just kind of sitting by myself on my phone the most? And then kind of target that. And kind of along with that, kind of increasing apps that are healthy and helpful, maybe like some mental health apps, or physical health, or things to help you with spiritual growth. So those are kind of the practical suggestions I have for you. I would love to hear from you. So first of all, you can comment on this video. One, something new you're going to try from this presentation. Or if you have a way that you already kind of increase the quality or reduce the quantity of your own screen time, you have an idea that you want to share with everyone, I would love to hear that. And then thirdly, if you have an app that you love that contributes to your personal wholeness and wellness, I would love to hear from you guys about what's been helpful for you. So that's kind of all I have for you today, but I hope that this has been helpful and kind of made you think a little bit more about how technology can both contribute and help relieve us of loneliness. So hope you guys have a great day.